Good evening. I'm Teresa Skubic, and this is Forum Daily for Monday, January 6th. This morning, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced that he is resigning as Prime Minister and leader of the Liberal Party as soon as the party selects a new leader.
Over the holidays, I've also had a chance to reflect and have had long talks with my family about our future. Throughout the course of my career, any success I have personally achieved has been because of their support and with their encouragement. So last night over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today. I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the President of the Liberal Party to begin that process. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election.
Liberal strategist Andrew Perez joined us to explain what happens next.
So the Prime Minister has resigned and he's prorogued Parliament till March 24th. So Parliament will not sit for the next 2.5 months. Right now, there's a great deal of power in the hands of the National Board, the National Executive of the Federal Liberal Party. It will be meeting in the coming hours and days, and it will need to set out what are the rules for this Liberal leadership race related to fundraising, limits, how long will the race be. Right now, we're expecting at least 6 or 7 what I would call strong candidates. 2 from outside the government, former BC Premier Christy Clark and Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of Canada in England, as well as several current members of the cabinet, Anita Anand, François-Philippe Champagne, possibly Dominique LeBlanc, Melanie Joly, and also Chrystia Freeland, who recently resigned from cabinet. And so I think it will be a robust race. I expect that the race will conclude prior to March 24th, when Parliament comes back. The Liberal Party constitution says that a race should be no less than 3 months, but I think there is a provision that would allow it to be expedited. At the end of the day, Parliament will resume at the end of March. Because prorogation means that all the legislation before Parliament dies, the new government, the new Prime Minister, will put out a throne speech, which will lay out the new legislative agenda of the government. And then we will have to see what happens. If you had asked me a couple days ago, I would have said that the new government will be a dead man walking. But it remains to be seen if Jagmeet Singh may entertain once again collaborating with this government. At the end of the day, it will be a new Prime Minister. That new Prime Minister may have some political capital. The NDP may not be ready financially to pull the plug. They may not have their candidates lined up. And so while I think you're hearing a lot of commentary now predicting probably an early April election, I wouldn't take that to the bank. I think we'll have to see what happens with this leadership race, who ultimately wins, who becomes Prime Minister, and how they are able to negotiate with the opposition parties. I think there still is a possibility that this government could survive until the fall, when we were originally expecting a fixed election date.
And in response to Mr. Trudeau's resignation, opposition leader Pierre Poilievre released a video on social media calling out the Liberal MPs who supported Mr. Trudeau.
Every Liberal MP in power today and every potential Liberal leadership contender fighting for the top job helped Justin Trudeau break the country over the last 9 years. All Liberal politicians actively worked to pass into law the job-killing inflationary carbon tax, a tax that Carbon Tax Carney endorsed in his book. All supported a law quadrupling the tax over the next 5 years. All voted for or actively supported Trudeau's out-of-control spending, debt, and immigration. All passed Trudeau's housing policies that doubled the cost of homes. All Liberal politicians helped pass catch-and-release bail and house arrest for the most rampant reoffenders, policies that increased violent crime 50%, gun crime 116%, and hate crime by 250%. So given that Liberal MPs and leadership contenders unanimously supported everything Trudeau has done. Why dump him now, right before an election?
All right, stay tuned. Up next, the FBI reports the man behind the deadly truck attack in New Orleans had traveled to Ontario in July 2023. Stay tuned. The Federal Bureau of Investigation says that the man behind the deadly truck attack on Bourbon Street in New Orleans had traveled to Ontario in July 2023.
We have also tracked that Jabbar traveled to Cairo, Egypt from June 22nd until July 3rd of 2023. A few days later, he flew to Ontario, Canada on July 10th and returned to the U.S. on July 13th on 2023. Our agents are getting answers as to where he went, who he met with, and how those trips may or may not tie into his actions here in our city in New Orleans.
A special agent says that the investigation is crossing state and international borders as law enforcement continues to piece together the driver's movements before the attack. Agents are trying to figure out where he went on his travels, who he may have met with, and if anyone is connected to the attack. And heavy hearts filled the French Quarter on Saturday as a vigil was held on Bourbon Street to mourn the lives of those killed in the New Year's attack in the best way New Orleans knows how, through music. United in grief, thousands gathered on Bourbon Street to remember the 14 lives lost and 30 injured. Street performers and musicians played to mourn the loss and lift the city's spirits. A makeshift memorial of crosses and pictures of the deceased victims were surrounded by candles, flowers, and teddy bears. Prosecutors in Germany announced today that the death toll in the attack on a Christmas market in the city of Magdeburg last month has risen to 6 after a woman died from her injuries. The 52-year-old woman was among 200 people injured in the December 20th attack when a man drove a rented car through a crowded market. Authorities have identified the suspect as a Saudi doctor who arrived in Germany in 2006. Thousands of Israeli citizens rallied in Tel Aviv as police carried away protesters who were demanding that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu end the war in Gaza. The rally comes as Hamas published a new video of an Israeli hostage who's been held by the militant group since October 7, 2023. Israeli soldier Liri Albag was speaking while under duress in the video, talking about her situation as a captive. A shooting attack on a bus carrying Israelis in the West Bank has killed at least 3 people.
This morning's terrorist attack near Kedumim, 3 Israelis were murdered, 2 women in their 60s and 1 man in his 40s. 8 people were wounded, and of course families shattered. Terrorists opened fire on cars and a bus this morning in Al Funduk. Our army is currently conducting a manhunt for the gunman.
Hamas has not claimed responsibility. Violence has surged in the West Bank since Hamas's attack out of Gaza ignited the ongoing war there. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump appeared alongside Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni during her visit to his Mar-a-Lago golf club in Florida this weekend.
Mr. President.
Hi, everybody.
We love you.
We're going to be down there. What is it, 8:45? When does the movie start?
It's supposed to be 7:40.
Whatever, we'll be down.
Mr. President.
Ms. Meloni's trip follows Argentina President Javier Milei's trip to Mar-a-Lago. Mr. Milei became the first world leader to meet with Mr. Trump after the Republicans' election day victory in November. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban also met with the president-elect. All right, stay with us. Up next, we'll have our weekly Caldwell segment. This week, Director Brendan Caldwell and I will be discussing the importance of protecting senior citizens from investment scams. After that, we'll have more news from across Canada and around the world. So stay with us. Forum Daily will be right back after these messages. With many Canadians setting financial resolutions for 2025, it's always imperative to be made aware of financial scams, especially for senior citizens that are most often approached by scammers. Scams of all types ran rampant during the holiday season, from charity scams to gift card fraud. There are even a number of crypto investment scams making their rounds, using social media and fraudulent websites to lure Canadians into false crypto investments. And because they're not as tech savvy and might be more isolated from family and friends, seniors are always the prime target for scammers looking to make a quick buck or swindle someone out of their life savings. Joining us now is Brendan Caldwell, Director at Caldwell Securities Limited. Brendan, welcome back and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Teresa.
Now, a client of yours recently received an offer letter from an organization that they'd never heard of before. What was the offer and why did it set off alarm bells?
Well, I am grateful it did set off alarm bells with him. The offer was this. It's a company called, I don't know how to pronounce it, Ocean, Ocehan LLC, with a Park Avenue, New York address, no less. And the offer was to buy their shares of Great West Life, which they had got when Great West Life demutualized and became a public company, as a number of life insurance companies in Canada did 25, 30 years ago. They got some shares, and these shares are worth a fair amount of money on the open market. So the intent was to make them an offer around these shares, but it all sounded well, a little confusing. So I'm grateful that they made a call.
And what are solicitations like this hoping to get out of investors?
Well, it's a funny thing. This actual particular solicitation, you were mentioning your little intro there about crypto and Bitcoin and charity scams and all kinds of things. This actually is a very old scam that has been going around for decades, many decades, generations probably. And it's basically this: an organization you never heard of offers to buy the shares that you have. Now, they have better access to shares that are held directly by the shareholder. So these shares are held at the transfer agent, for, in this case, Great West Life. And the offer is to buy the shares at, I think it was $38 a share. They were going to buy my client's stake in Great West Life, the 686 shares that they own, for $26,000, $38 a share. The thing is, if they wanted to sell their Great West Life shares, it trades at $47 a share. So they're trying to talk old people in some official looking forms. One of them is in goldenrod and everything for them to fill out. That they're trying to con these older people into selling their shares for $9 a share cheaper than what they can sell it at the open market, and in the process, pocket $5,000 or $6,000 in so doing.
Now, the topic is seniors, but I'm going to be honest, I've almost fallen for some of these scammers before. So, what should seniors, but also just the average person, do to receive if they receive a letter like this?
Well, with any of these scams, the phone scams, the email scams, but these letter scams as well, just call someone you trust. Hey, I don't understand this. And it may turn out, as in the case of this particular scam is as old as the hills, that they've been doing this. I say seniors in particular in this case, because it's usually seniors that have their shares either in physical form in a safety deposit box, and they're registered with the particular company, or in the case of in this client, they have them with the transfer agent. But just call someone you trust. Call your investment advisor. Call your lawyer. Call your accountant. Call someone that you trust and say, "Hey, this doesn't make sense." Because if something doesn't make sense, you've never seen it before, probably it's not something that's going to be for your benefit.
Now, we do just have about a minute left, but what can you and Caldwell Securities do to help protect seniors from scams like these?
Well, whether it's me or another investment firm, in this particular case, my suggestion is it is better to have your shares held with a securities firm, with Caldwell Securities or some other securities firm, rather than directly at the transfer agent or in physical certificate form. The shares are much less likely to be lost. You have a professional to whom you can talk that you know and trust, and you are a little bit insulated from getting these kind of solicitations because they have to go through at least one layer, one firewall to get to you. So I think you're safer, more transparent, less likely to lose the certificate, and you have someone to talk to whom you can trust.
Well, Brendan, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you, Teresa. Have a great 2025.
All right, don't go anywhere. We'll have more news right after the break. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is insisting he will speak with his allies about boosting Ukraine's air defenses during a meeting this week in Germany. The comments come as Kyiv's forces press new attacks in Russia's Kursk region. Mr. Zelensky says that the Russian and North Korean troops fighting in Kursk have suffered heavy losses in battles yesterday and today near just one village. He claims that the Russian army lost up to a battalion of North Korean infantry soldiers and Russian paratroopers. More avian flu cases have been detected in British Columbia. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency says the virus was detected over the weekend at a commercial poultry property in Abbotsford. The update comes as infectious disease experts say that the avian flu case that infected a 13-year-old in BC shows worrisome signs that the virus could be mutating to infect humans more easily. The teen was the first human case of H5N1 acquired in Canada. Quebec Conservative MP Luc Berthold says he will soon undergo surgery for prostate cancer. The longtime MP for the riding of Mégantic-L'Érable shares the news in a Facebook post today, noting that the cancer is treatable. He also says that he has no intention of stepping down and will stay on as a Conservative candidate for the newly created riding of Mégantic-L'Érable-Lot-Binière in the next federal election. The two men convicted in the freezing death of an Indian family crossing the Manitoba border into the United States are seeking an acquittal or new trials. Both were convicted by a Minnesota jury in November on all 4 counts each were facing, accused of carrying out smuggling trips between Manitoba and Minnesota on several occasions in December 2021 and January 2022. Lawyers for the men now argue that the evidence presented to the jury was insufficient to prove the men's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Newfoundland Power is restoring electricity to the thousands of customers who went off the grid after a nasty winter storm hit northeastern Newfoundland Saturday night and through Sunday. Massive waves slammed into the coastline for many hours, knocking down trees and even sending small buildings tumbling into the ocean near St. John's. Wind warnings remain in effect in northwestern Newfoundland, and winter storm warnings are still in effect for northeastern Labrador coastline. The farewell for former U.S. President Jimmy Carter continues.
Afternoon. We'll have many chances this week to pay tribute to my grandfather, but it was important for all of us that we stop here. These buildings, as you all know, are filled with his life, not just because this is a museum to his life, and not just because there's a collection here of his beloved paintings, but his spirit fills this place. And the real reason that this spirit fills this place is because of the people who are standing here. The people in this room, from the library and the museum and the Carter Center itself, you all are the real keepers of my grandparents' legacy. Jimmy Carter Library and Museum holds the historical legacy, tells my grandparents' story, which is really this unbelievable American story. And you hold it and you present it for my kids and for their kids and for all of those other generations to come.
His flag-draped casket was taken to the Carter Presidential Center, where he will lie in state until early Tuesday. National rites will continue in Washington and conclude on Thursday with a funeral at Washington National Cathedral, followed by a return to Plains, Georgia. He will then be buried next to his wife of 77 years near the home they built before his first state Senate campaign in 1962. Teddy Stiga scored on a breakaway in overtime as U.S. edged Finland 4-3 to capture America's first ever second straight gold medal at the World Junior Hockey Championship.
Lead pass for Stiga. In comes Teddy Stiga. Oh, Stiga shoots, scores! Teddy Stiga, goal! And the United States has won back-to-back World Junior gold medals for the first time in its history. Teddy Stiga's first goal of this World Junior Hockey Championship is the overtime winner.
The 18-year-old Nashville Predators prospect started the Ottawa tournament as a healthy scratch before working his way into the lineup. Earlier, Czechia beat Sweden 3-2 in a marathon shootout to win bronze. Canada again ended the tournament with a disappointing fifth-place finish. I'm Teresa Skubik, and that'll do it for your look at national and international news for today. Remember, for more news on demand, you can always visit our website at thenewsforum.ca and make sure to follow us on social media. You can also watch all of our commentary programming on the Newsforum YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us. Good night, Canada.